Hello, and welcome to Bible Body Doubling. This is where we read the stories together and we wonder out loud. I am your host, Giovanna J, here with my co hosts, KJ5 and CSB. All right, today we are on chapter 3 of First Kings, and I'm about to do the cap on the recap. How you guys doing on this lovely Wednesday? I got a little bit of pep in my step today. All right, so First Kings chapter 1 to 2 is all that I read on last episode because the chapters are pretty long. And okay, let's do a recap. What was going on? What was going on? Okay, now David is really old. That's what we read last chapter. He's really old. And he's so old that his body can't keep temperature. So they had a really beautiful woman come and lay beside him to keep him warm, but he didn't do anything with her, allegedly. Adonijah, his son, tried to overthrow him. So first it was Absalom who tried to overthrow him. Now it is Adonijah, Absalom's brother, who tried to overthrow King David at his young age. So we can see that the prophecy that the prophet Nathan said is being fulfilled at this moment, because I think he said the sword would never leave David's house. But we did also get a little bit of a look or two inside of David's, I would say, emotional state. What do you all think? I think I mentioned on the last one, I think David's a little depressed. Like, he's no longer fighting for the kingdom. He heard that Adonijah was doing all these things like that shows some form of overthrowing, one might say, because he was getting the chariots together. He had got Joab, which was his commander at the time of the army. So there he gets his protection. He's got his counsel over there on his side, all these different things. But I guess when he finally became king, David didn't know, but David probably heard the rumors about him wanting to be king. But David didn't do anything. He never questioned his son or anything. So I don't know if David was tired. I had mentioned it last episode, but that ever since David was young, he had defeated the giant and then probably was in the house of Saul for a little bit. And after that, he had been on a run. Ever since he was a kid, by grown men, he had been on a run. He was a boy on a run for a lot of his life. And he always been a man of war and a man of fight, although the scriptures also said that he was wise as well. So that's pretty interesting, because David always fought, but he didn't fight this time. And then and also the way the prophet Nathan and Bathsheba had to come talk to him was kind of strange. It's almost like they had to do it in a roundabout way. So that happened, and then he confirms that Solomon is king. Okay, now Solomon is king, which is a big deal. It's a really, 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 really big deal, because King Solomon is the one from out of wedlock. This is the child of For All the Rage. This is the child that is from his murder, and he's the one that's king. So he became king, and he ended up killing his brother Adonijah. He also ended up killing Joab. And then David died. And that's kind of like what happened. Okay. So let's get right straight into this good book. Any thoughts, views, and no questions? Put it up in the chat, because it is somebody. It is somebody in the chat. Look, y'all, I'm able to look over. Before I wasn't able to look over because I was always messing up. I told y'all, by the time episode 110 comes, your girl's gonna have it together. 110 right now. We only on episode probably like 12. All right, let's get into this good book. All right, we are on chapter 3. me get comfy. Chapter 3. Solomon made an alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, by marrying Pharaoh's daughter. You know what? I always stop a little verse or two beforehand so we can kind of like get a little prelude. So, chapter 2, we're going to start at verse 44. The king also said, this is King David, you yourself know all the evil that you did to my father David. Therefore, the Lord has brought back your evil on your own head. But King Solomon will be blessed, and David's throne will remain established before the Lord forever. Then the king commanded Benaiah, son of Joiada, and he went out and struck Shimei down, and he died. So the kingdom was established in Solomon's hand. Solomon made an alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, by marrying Pharaoh's daughter. Solomon brought her to the city of David until he finished building his palace, the Lord's temple, and the wall surrounding Jerusalem. However, the people were sacrificing on the high places because until that time, a temple for the Lord's name had not been built. Solomon loved the Lord by walking in the statutes of his father David, but he also sacrificed and burned incense on the high places. The king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there because it was the most famous high place. He offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night. God said, ask, what should I give you? And Solomon replied, you have shown great and faithful love to your servant, my father David, because he walked before you in faithfulness, righteousness, and integrity. You have committed the great, you have committed, where do I see the word committed? That's not even on here. You have continued this great and faithful love for him by giving him a son to sit on his throne as it is today. Lord my God, you have now made your servant king in my father David's place. Yet I am just a youth with no experience in leadership. Your servant is among your people you have chosen, a people too many to be numbered or counted. So give your servant a receptive heart to judge your people and to discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours? Now it pleased the Lord that Solomon had requested this. So God said to him, because you have requested this and did not ask for long life or riches for yourself or the death of your enemies, but you asked discernment for yourself to administer justice, I will therefore do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and understanding heart so that, sorry, I lost my space, even though my finger was there. Hold on. I will give you a wise and understanding heart so that there has never been anyone like you before and never will be again. In addition, I will give you what you did not ask for, both riches and honor, so that no king will be your equal during your entire life. If you walk in my ways and keep my statutes and commands just as your father did, I will give you a long life. Then Solomon woke up and realized it had been a dream. He went to Jerusalem, stood before the ark of the Lord's covenant, and offered burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then he held a feast for all his servants. Then 2 women who were prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One woman said, please, my lord, this woman and I live in the same house, and I had a baby while she was in the house. On the 3rd day after I gave birth, she also had a baby. and we were alone. No one else was with us in the house, just the two of us were there. During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. She got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while your servant was asleep. She laid him in her arms. She put her dead son in my arms. When I got up in the morning to nurse my son, I discovered he was dead. That morning, when I looked closely at him, I realized that he was not the son I gave birth to. No, the other woman said. My son is the living one. Your son is the dead one. The first woman said, no, no, your son is the dead one. My son is the living one. So they argued before the king. The king replied, this woman says, this is my son who is alive, and your son is dead. But the woman says, no, your son is dead, and my son is alive. The king continued, bring me a sword. So they brought the sword to the king. The king said, cut the living boy in two and give half to one and half to the other. The woman whose son was alive spoke to the king because she felt great compassion for her son. My lord, give her the living baby, she said, but please don't have him killed. But the other one said, he would not be mine or yours. Cut him in two. The king responded, give the living baby to the first woman and don't kill him. She is his mother. All Israel heard about the judgment the king had given, and they stood in awe of the king because they saw that God's wisdom was in him to carry out justice. King Solomon reigned. Oh, pause, end scene. You can't go for some dramatic like that. Traumatic and dramatic, and then just go, King Solomon reigned over Israel. Let's take a moment. Chapter 4. King Solomon reigned over all Israel, and these were his officials: Azariah, son of Zadok, priest; Elahoreph and Ahijah, the sons of Shisha, secretaries; Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, court historian; Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, in charge of the army; Zadok and Abiathar, priests; Azariah, son of Nathan, in charge of the deputies; Zabud, son of Nathan, a priest and advisor to the king; Ahishar, in charge of the palace; and Adoniram, son of Abda, in charge of forced labor. Solomon had 12 deputies for all Israel. They provide food for the king and his household. Each one made provision for 1 month out of the year. These were their names: Ben-Hur in the hill country of Ephraim, Ben-Deker in Makkos, Shalbim, Beth Shemesh, and Elon Beth Hanan; Ben-Hasid in Araboth. He had Soko and the whole land of Hepher; Ben-Abinadab in all of Naphath Dor. Taphath, daughter of Solomon, was his wife. Oh, he was married in. Baanah, son of Ahilud, in Tanakh; Megiddo and all Beth Shean, which is beside Zarethan below Jezreel, from Beth Shean to Abel Meholah, as far as the other side of Jochimim. Ben-Geber in Ramoth Gilead. He had the villages of Jar, son of Manasseh, which are in Gilead, and he had the region of Argob, which is in Bashan, 60 great cities with walls and bronze bars. Ahinadab, son of Edu, in Mahanaim; Ahimaaz in Naphtali. He also had married a daughter of Solomon Basmath. Baanah, son of Hushah, in Asher; and Beeloth; Jehoshaphat, son of Paruah, in Issachar; Shemi, son of Elah, in Benjamin; Geber, son of Uri, in the land of Gilead, the country of King Sihon. of the Amorites and the king of Og of Bashan. There were one deputy in the land of Judah. Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand by the sea. They were eating, drinking, and rejoicing. Solomon ruled all the kingdoms from the Euphrates River to the land of the Philistines and as far as the border of Egypt. They offered tribute and served Solomon all the days of his life. Solomon's provisions for one day were 150 bushels of fine flour and 300 bushels of meal, 10 fattened cattle, and 20 range cattle, and 100 sheep and goats, besides deers, gazelles, roebucks, and pen-fed poultry. For he had dominion over everything west of the Euphrates, from Tifsah to Gaza, and over all the kings west of the Euphrates. He had peace on all his surrounding borders. Throughout Solomon's reign, Judah and Israel lived in safety from Dan to Beersheba, each person under his own vine and his own fig tree. Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots and 12,000 horsemen. Each of those deputies for a month in turn provided food for King Solomon and for everyone who came to King Solomon's table. They neglected nothing. Each man brought the barley and the straw for the chariots' teams, and the others' horses to the required place according to his assignment. God gave Solomon wisdom, very great insight and understanding, as vast as the sand on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all the people of the East, greater than all the wisdom of Egypt. He was wiser than anyone, wiser than Ethan the Israelite, and Haman, Calcol, and Darda, son of Mahol. His reputation extended to all the surrounding nations. Solomon spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. He spoke about trees, from the cedar in Lebanon to the hyssop growing out of the wall. He also spoke about animals, birds, reptiles, and fish. Emissaries of all peoples, sent by every king on earth who had heard of his wisdom, came to listen to Solomon's wisdom. King Hiram of Tyre sent his emissaries to Solomon when he heard that he had been anointed king in his father's place. For Hiram had always been friends with David. Solomon sent this message to Hiram: "You know, my father David was not able to build a temple for the name of the Lord his God. This was because of the warfare all around him until the Lord put his enemies under his feet. The Lord my God has now given me rest on every side. There is no enemies or crisis. So I plan to build a temple for the name of the Lord my God, according to what the Lord promised my father David. I will put your son on your throne in your place, and he will build a temple for my name. Therefore, command that cedars from Lebanon be cut down for me. My servants will be your servants, and I will pay your servants wages according to whatever you say. For you know that not a man among us know how to cut timber like the Sidonians." When Hiram heard Solomon's words, he rejoiced greatly and said, "Blessed be the Lord today. He has given David a wise son to be over this great people." Then Hiram sent a reply to Solomon saying, "I have heard your message. I will do everything you want regarding the cedar and cypress timber. My servants will bring the logs down from Lebanon to the sea, and I will make them into rafts to go by sea to the place you indicate. I will break them apart there, and you can take them away. You then can meet my needs by providing my household with food. So Hiram provided Solomon with all the cedar and cypress timber he wanted. And Solomon provided Hiram with 100,000 bushels of wheat as food for his household and 110,000 gallons of oil from crushed olives. Solomon did this for him. Solomon did this for Hiram year after year. The Lord gave Solomon wisdom as he had promised him. There was peace between Hiram and Solomon, and the two of them made a treaty. Then King Solomon drafted forced laborers from all Israel. The labor force numbered 30,000 men. He sent 10,000 to Lebanon each month in shifts. 1 month they were in Lebanon. 2 months they were at home. Adoniram was in charge of the forced labor. Solomon had 70,000 porters and 80,000 stone cutters in the mountains, not including his 3,300 deputies in charge of the work. They supervised the people doing the work. The king commanded them to quarry large, costly stones to lay the foundation of the temple with dressed stones. So Solomon's builders and Hiram's builders, along with the Gebalites, quarried the stone and prepared the timber and stone for the temple's construction. Solomon began to build the temple for the Lord in the 480th year after the Israelites came out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of his reign over Israel, in the month of Ziv, which is the 2nd month. The temple that King Solomon built for the Lord was 90 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 45 feet high. The portico in front of the temple sanctuary was 30 feet long, extending across the temple's width, and 15 feet deep in front of the temple. He also made windows with beveled frames for the temple. He then built a chambered structure along the temple wall, encircling the walls of the temple, that is, the sanctuary and the inner sanctuary. And he made side chambers all around. The lowest chamber was 7.5 feet wide. The middle was 9 feet wide, and the third was 10.5 feet wide. He also provided offset ledges for the temple all around the outside so that nothing would be inserted in the temple's walls. The temple construction used finished stones cut at the quarry so that no hammer, chisel, or any iron tool was heard in the temple while it was being built. Dang. The door for the lowest side chamber was on the right side of the temple. They went up a stairway to the middle chamber, and from the middle to the third. When he finished building the temple, he paneled it with boards and planks of cedar. He built the chamber along the entire temple, joined to the temple with cedar beams. Each story was 7.5 feet high. The word of the Lord came to Solomon. As for this temple you are building, if you walk in my statutes, observe my ordinances, and keep all my commands by walking in them, I will fulfill my promise to you, which I made to your father David. I will dwell among the Israelites and not abandon my people Israel. When Solomon finished building the temple, he paneled the interior temple walls with cedar boards. From the temple floor to the surface of the ceiling, he overlaid the interior with wood. He also overlaid the floor with cypress board. Then he lined 30 feet of the rear of the temple with cedar boards from the floor to the surface of the ceiling. And he built the interior as an inner sanctuary, the most holy place. The temple, that is, the sanctuary in front of the most holy place, was 60 feet long. The cedar paneling inside the temple was carved with ornamental gourds and flower blossoms. Everything was cedar, not a stone could be seen. He prepared the inner sanctuary inside the temple to put the Ark of the Lord's covenant there. The interior of the sanctuary was 30 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 30 feet high. He overlaid it with pure gold. He also overlaid the cedar altar. Next, Solomon overlaid the interior of the temple with pure gold. And he hung gold chains across the front of the inner sanctuary and overlaid it with gold. So he added the gold overlay to the entire temple until everything was completely finished. He included the entire altar that belongs to the inner sanctuary. In the inner sanctuary, he made 2 cherubim, 15 feet high, out of olive wood. One wing of the first cherub was 7.5 feet long, and the other wing was 7.5 feet long. The wingspan was 15 feet from tip to tip. The second cherub also was 15 feet. Both cherubim had the same size and shape. The first cherub's height was 15 feet, and so was the second cherub's. Then he put the cherub inside the inner temple. Since their wings were spread out, the first one's wing touched one wall, while the second cherub's wing touched the other wall. And in the middle of the temple, their wings were touching wing to wing. He also overlaid the cherubim with gold. He carved all the surrounding temple walls with carved engravings, cherubim, palm trees, and flower blossoms in the inner and outer sanctuaries. He overlaid the temple floor with gold in both the inner and the outer sanctuaries. For the entrance of the inner sanctuary, he made olive wood doors. The pillars of the doorposts were 5-sided. The 2 doors were made of olive wood. He carved cherubim, palm trees, and flower blossoms on them and overlaid them with gold, hammering gold over the cherubim and palm trees. In the same way, he made 4-sided olive wood doorposts for the sanctuary entrance. The 2 doors were made of cypress wood. The first door had 2 folding sides. The second door had 2 folding panels. He carved cherubim, palm trees, and flower blossoms on them and overlaid them with gold applied evenly over the carving. He built the inner courtyard with 3 rows of dressed stone and a row of trimmed cedar beams. The foundation of the Lord's temple was laid in Solomon's 4th year in the month of Ziv, and his 11th year in the month of Bul, which is the 8th month. The temple was completed in every detail and according to every specification. So he built it in 7 years. Solomon completed his entire palace complex after 13 years of construction. He built the house of the forest of Lebanon. He built the house of the forest of Lebanon. It was 150 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high, on 4 rows of cedar pillars, with cedar beams on top of the pillars. It was paneled above with cedar at the top of the chambers that rested on 45 pillars, 15 per row. There were 3 rows of window frames facing each other in 3 tiers. All the doors and doorposts had rectangular frames, the opening the openings facing each other in 3 tiers. He made the hall of pillars 75 feet long and 45 feet wide. A portico was in front of the pillars, and a canopy with pillars was in front of them. He made the hall of the throne where he would judge, the hall of judgment. It was paneled with cedar from the floor to the rafters. Solomon's own palace, where he would live, and the other courtyard behind the hall was of similar construction. And he made a house like this hall for Pharaoh's daughter, his wife. All of these buildings were of costly stone, cut to size and sawed with saws on the inner and outer surfaces, from foundation to coping, and from the outside to the great courtyard. The foundation was made of large, costly stones, 12 and 15 feet long. Above were also costly stones cut to size, as well as cedar wood. Around the great courtyard, as well as the inner courtyard of the Lord's temple and the portico of the temple, were 3 rows of dressed stones and a row of trimmed cedar beams. King Solomon had Hiram brought from Tyre. He was a widow's son from the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre, a bronze craftsman. Hiram had great skill, understanding, and knowledge. Skill, understanding, knowledge. Skill, great skill, understanding, and knowledge. To do every kind of bronze work. So he came to King Solomon and carried out all his work. He cast 2 bronze pillars, each 27 feet high and 18 feet in circumference. He also made 2 capitals of cast bronze to set on top of the pillars. 7.5 feet was the height of the first capital, and 7.5 feet was the height of the second capital. The capitals on top of the pillars had gratings of lattice work, wreaths made of chain work, 7 for the first capital and 7 for the second. He made the pillar with 2 encircling rows of pomegranates on the one grating to cover the capital on top. He did the same for the second capital. And the capitals on top of the pillars in the portico were shaped like lilies, 6 feet high. The capitals on the 2 pillars were also immediately above the rounded surface next to the grating, and 200 pomegranates were in rows encircling each capital. He set up the pillars at the portico of the sanctuary. He set up the right pillar and named it Jachin. Then he set up the left pillar, named it Boaz. Jachin. We're going to get it together. The tops of the pillars were shaped like lilies. Then the work of the pillars was completed. He made the cast metal basin 15 feet from brim to brim, perfectly round. It was 7.5 feet high and 45 feet in circumference. Ornamental gourds encircled it below the brim, 10 every half yard, completely encircling the basin. The gourds were cast in 2 rows when the basin was cast. It stood on 12 oxen, 3 facing north, 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. The basin was on top of them, and all their hind quarters were toward the center. The basin was 3 inches thick, and its rim was fashioned like the brim of a cup of a lily blossom. It held 11,000 gallons. That must have been some piece of artwork. Then he made 10 bronze water carts. Each water cart 6 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 4.5 feet high. This was the design of the carts. They had frames. The frames were between the cross pieces, and on the frames between the cross pieces were lions, oxen, and cherubims. On the cross pieces there was a pedestal above. Below the lion and oxen were wreaths of hanging work. Each cart had 4 bronze wheels with bronze axles. Underneath the 4 corners of the basin were cast supports, each next to a wreath. And the water carts opening inside the crown on top was 18 inches wide. The opening was round, made as a pedestal, 27 inches wide. On it were carving, but their frames were square, not round. There were 4 wheels under the frames, and the wheel axles were part of the water cart. Each wheel was 27 inches tall. The wheel's design was similar to that of chariot wheels. The axles, rims, spokes, and hubs were all of cast metal. 4 supports were at the 4 corners of each water cart. Each support was one piece with the water cart. At the top of the cart was a band 9 inches high, encircling it. Also at the top of the cart, its braces and its frames were one piece with it. He engraved cherubim, lions, and palm trees on the plates of its braces and on its frames, wherever each had space with encircling wreaths. In this way, he made the 10 water carts using the same casting dimensions and shape for all of them. Then he made 10 bronze basins. Each basin held 220 gallons and each was 6 feet wide. One basin for each of the 10 water carts. He set 5 water carts on the right side of the temple and 5 on the left side. He put the basin near the right side of the temple toward the southeast. Then Hiram made the basins, the shovels, and the sprinkling basins. So Hiram finished all the work he was doing for King Solomon on the Lord's temple. 2 pillars, bowls for the capitals that were on top of the 2 pillars. The 2 gratings for covering both bowls of the capitals that were on top of the pillars. The 400 pomegranates for the 2 gratings. 2 rows of pomegranates for each grating, covering both capital bowls on the top of the pillars. The 2 water carts, the 10 basins on the water carts. The basin, the 12 oxen underneath the basin, and the pots, shovels, and sprinkling basins. All the utensils that Hiram made for King Solomon at the Lord's temple were made of burnished bronze. Say that 5 times. Burnished bronze. Burnished bronze. The king had them cast in clay molds in the Jordan Valley between Succoth and Zarethan. Solomon left all the utensils unweighed because there were so many. The weight of the bronze was not determined. Solomon also made all the equipment in the Lord's temple, the gold altar, the gold table that the bread of presence was placed on, the pure gold lampstands in front of the inner sanctuary, 5 on the right and 5 on the left, the gold flowers, lamps, and tongues, the pure gold ceremonial bowls, wick trimmers, sprinkling basins, ladles, and fire pans, and the gold hinges for the doors of the inner temple, that is the most holy place, and for the doors of the temple sanctuary. So all the work King Solomon did in the Lord's temple was completed. Then Solomon brought in the consecrated things of his father David, the silver, the gold, and the utensils, and put them in the treasuries of the Lord's temple. Chapter 8. At that time, Solomon assembled the elders of Israel, all the tribal heads and the ancestral leaders of the Israelites, before him in Jerusalem in order to bring the ark of the Lord's covenant from the city of David, that is Zion. So all the men of Israel were assembled in the presence of King Solomon in the month of Ethanim, which is the 7th month, at the festival. All the elders of Israel came, and the priest picked up the ark. The priests and the Levites brought the ark of the Lord, the tent of meeting, and the holy utensils that were in the tent. King Solomon and the entire congregation of Israel who had gathered around him and were with him in front of the ark were sacrificing sheep, goats, and cattle that could not be counted or numbered because there was so many. The priests brought the ark of the Lord covenant to its place, into the inner sanctuary of the temple, to the most holy place, beneath the wings of the cherubim. For the cherubim were spreading their wings over the place of the ark, so that the cherubim covered the ark and its pole from above. The poles were so long that their ends were seen from the holy place in front of the inner sanctuary, but they were not seen from outside the sanctuary. They are still there today. Nothing was in the ark except the 2 stone tablets that Moses had put there at Horeb, where the Lord made a covenant with Israel when they came out of the land of Egypt. When the priest came out of the holy place, the cloud filled the Lord's temple. And because of the cloud, the priests were not able to continue ministering, for the glory of the Lord filled the temple. Then Solomon said, "The Lord said that he would dwell in total darkness. I have indeed built an exalted temple for you, a place for your dwelling forever." The king turned around and blessed the entire congregation of Israel while they were standing. He said, "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel. He spoke directly to my father David, and he has fulfilled a promise by his power. He said, 'Since the day I brought my people Israel out of Egypt, I have not chosen a city to build a temple in among any of the tribes of Israel, so that my name would be there. But I have chosen David to rule my people Israel.' My father David had his heart set on building a temple for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. For the Lord said to my father David, 'Since your heart was set on building a temple for my name, you have done well to have this desire. Yet you are not the one to build it. Instead, your son, your own offspring, will build it for my name. The Lord has fulfilled what he promised. I have taken the place of my father David, and I sit on the throne of Israel as the Lord promised. I have built the temple for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. I have provided a place there for the ark where the Lord's covenant is that he made with our ancestors when he brought them out of the land of Egypt. Then Solomon stood before the altar of the Lord in front of the entire congregation of Israel and spread out his hands toward heaven. He said, Lord God of Israel, there is no God like you in heaven above or on earth below, who keeps the gracious covenant with your servants who walk before you with all their heart. You have kept what you promised to your servant, my father David. You spoke directly to him. You fulfilled your promise by your power as it is today. Therefore, Lord God of Israel, keep what you promised to your servant, my father David. You will never fail to have a man to sit before me on the throne of Israel. If only your sons take care to walk before me as you have walked before me. Now, Lord God of Israel, please confirm what you promised to your servant, my father David. But will God indeed live on earth? Even heaven, the highest heaven, cannot contain you, much less this temple I have built. Listen to your servant's prayer and his petition, Lord my God, so that you may hear the cry and the prayer that your servant prayers before you today, so that your eyes may watch over this temple night and day, to where the place where you said my name will be there, and so that you may hear the prayer that your servants prays toward this place. Hear the petition of your servant and your people Israel. Which they pray toward this place. May you hear in your dwelling place in heaven. May you hear and forgive. When a man sins against his neighbor and is forced to take an oath, and he comes to take an oath before your altar in this temple, may you hear in heaven and act. May you judge your servants, condemning the wicked man by bringing what he has done on his own head and providing justice for the righteous, by rewarding him according to his righteousness. When your people Israel are defeated before an enemy, because they have sinned against you, and they return to you and praise your name, and they pray and plead with you for mercy in this temple, may you hear in heaven and forgive the sins of your people Israel. May you restore them to the land you gave their ancestors. When the skies are shut and there is no rain, because they have sinned against you, and they pray toward this place and praise your name, and they turn from their sins because you are afflicting them. May you hear in heaven and forgive the sins of your servants and your people Israel, so that you may teach them the good way they shall walk in. May you send rain on your land that you gave your people for an inheritance. When there is famine in the land, when there is pestilence, when there is blight or mildew, locusts or grasshoppers, when the enemies besieges them in the land and its city, when there is any plague or illness, every prayer or petition that any person or that all your people Israel may have, they each know their own afflictions as they spread out their hands toward this temple. May you hear in heaven, your dwelling place, and give to everyone according to all their ways. Since you know each heart, for you alone know every human heart, so that they may fear you all the days they live on the land you gave our ancestors. Even for the foreigner who is not of your people Israel, but has come from a distant land because of your name. For they will hear of your great name, strong hand, outstretched arm, and will come and pray towards this temple. May you hear in heaven, your dwelling place, and do according to all the foreigners' acts. Then all the people of earth will know your name, to fear you as your people Israel do, and to know that this temple have built. To fear you as your people Israel do, and to know that this temple I have built bears your name. When your people go out to fight against their enemies, wherever you send them, and they pray to the Lord, in the direction of this city you have chosen, and the temple I have built for your name, may you hear their prayer and petition in heaven, and uphold their cause. And when they sin against you, for there is no one who does not sin, and you are angry with them, and hand them over to their enemies, and their captors deport them to the enemy's country, whether distant or nearby, and when they come to their senses in the land where they were deported, and repent and petition you in their captor's land, we have sinned and done wrong, we have been wicked. And when they return to you with all their heart, all their soul, in the land of their enemies who took them captive, and when they pray to you in the direction of their land that you gave their ancestors, the city you have chosen, and the temple that I have built for your name, may you hear in heaven, your dwelling place, their prayer and petition, and uphold their cause. May you forgive your people who sinned against you and all their rebellions against you. And may you grant them compassion before their captors, so that they may treat them compassionately. For they are your people and your inheritance. You brought them out of Egypt, out of the middle of an iron furnace. May your eyes be open to your servant's petition and to the petition of your people Israel, listening to them whenever they call to you. For you, Lord God, have set them apart as your inheritance from all peoples of the earth, as you spoke through your servant Moses when you brought our ancestors out of Egypt. When Solomon finished praying this entire prayer and petition to the Lord, he got up from kneeling before the altar of the Lord, with his hands spread out toward heaven. He stood and blessed the whole congregation of Israel with a loud voice. Blessed be the Lord! He has given rest to his people Israel, according to all he has said. No one of all the good promises not one of all the good promises he made through his servant Moses has failed. May the Lord our God be with us as he was with our ancestors. May he not abandon us or leave us, so that he causes us to be devoted to him, to walk in all his ways and keep his commands, statutes, and ordinances, which he commanded our ancestors. May my words with which I have made my petition before the Lord be near the Lord our God day and night. May he uphold his servant's cause and the cause of his people Israel as each day requires. May all the people of the earth know that the Lord is God and there is no other. Be wholeheartedly devoted to the Lord our God, to walk in his statutes and to keep his commands as it is today. The king and all Israel with him were offering sacrifices in the Lord's presence. Solomon offered a sacrifice of fellowship offering to the Lord, 22,000 cattle and 120,000 sheep and goats. In this manner, the king and all the Israelites dedicated the Lord's temple. On the same day, the king consecrated the middle of the courtyard that was in front of the Lord's temple, because that was where he offered the burnt offering, the grain offering, and the fat of the fellowship offering, since the bronze altar before the Lord was too small to accommodate the burnt offerings, the grain offerings, and the fat of the fellowship offerings. Solomon and all Israel with him, a great assembly, from the entrance of Hamath to the brook of Egypt, observed the festival at that time in the presence of the Lord our God, 7 days and 7 more days, 14 days. On the 15th day he sent the people away. So they blessed the king and went to their homes, rejoicing with happy hearts for all the goodness that the Lord had done for his servant David and for his people. Close scene. Thank you so much for allowing me to read to you. This is the Bible Body Doubling Podcast. It is sponsored by the Gardener's House. And until we read again, ta-ta for now.